Hello, everyone. My name is Troy Shen, and I am a rising junior at Cranbrook Kingswood and also a member of mYe's Youth Leadership Committee. mYe stands for Michigan Youth Empowerment Foundation and is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to promoting STEM education and supporting K through 12 students so they can thrive in the new technological world. Welcome to our 7th Beat Live seminar, an extension of our website, myebeat.com. Before we start, I would like to introduce you all about the Inspiring Role Models Virtual Conference, IRM for short, an online event aiming to motivate youth to fully invest themselves and explore their passions. Two speakers presenting in this event include Matt Scott, an inspirational speaker and founder of Let's Care, and Shuhong Zhang. You may remember him from last year. These three seniors presenting today, along with the Youth Leadership Committee, worked extensively on this event, and it is a great opportunity to get close interactions with inspiring role models across different industries. Just go to myebeats.com /IRM-event. Our volunteers will have put the link in the chat by now and sign up there. One more thing, feel free to leave any questions you have all in the Q&A box. Make sure this is a Q&A box, not the chat. Our panelists will answer them at the end of this presentation. Anyways, it is our honor to host this seminar, and today we will be once again going over the college admissions process, starting with an introduction of our top 3 graduating seniors from the class of 2021. Let me first introduce you Jasmine Wu, who is also a member of mYe's YLC team and is attending John Hopkins University in the fall as a Hodson Scholar. Please join me to welcome Jasmine.
Thank you for that introduction, Troy. Yes, so I'm Jasmine Wu. I'm going to Johns Hopkins in the fall, and if you don't know what that is, it's a school in Maryland, and it's pretty famous for its pre-med. I think it's the 2nd best pre-med undergraduate school in the country, so I'm very lucky to go there because I'm also interested in pre-med. A Hodson Scholar is basically someone that the school has offered a merit scholarship to, which we'll talk about later. So as for a brief rundown of my history in high school, I had several roles in school. So the first one is as an mYe YLC member or the Youth Leadership Committee member. This is a great organization that hosts a lot of events like this webinar that you're attending right now. And I had a great time there. I was also Science Olympiad Club president. I ran varsity track and field, and I was appointed captain as a junior. I was a project lead officer, and that's just our school's volunteering club. And I was also the biology competitions club president and the National Ocean Science Bowl president, as well as chemistry club secretary, the National Science Bowl president, and and a member of our Health Occupation Students America club. And within each of these clubs, most of them are competition-based clubs, so I've won a lot of awards at the national level. And I also have 3 PVSA Gold Awards, which are just Presidential Volunteer Service Awards, and that's through being part of Project Lead and just doing a lot of volunteering stuff on the side. As for extracurriculars or things outside of school, I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. I also do a lot of environmental activism outside of school and volunteering, and I've had several internships, including with NASA, the US Forest Service, and a local orthopedics physical therapy place next to my school. I'm also concertmaster of our school's Philharmonic Orchestra, and I am in the Troy High Country Fiddlers, and it's just we memorize country songs and we play it at events. And as for my free time, I enjoy pursuing creative interests. For example, I am sewing a shirt right now, which I'm excited to get back to, and I love exercising and I like having fun with my friends.
Thank you, Jasmine. Next up, we have Grace Yang, the former president of mYe's YLC team, and will attend Stanford University this coming fall. Once again, please join me to welcome Grace.
Thank you for the introduction, Troy. So as he said, I will be attending Stanford University next fall, tentatively planning on majoring in management science and engineering, which, if you don't know, is sort of a combination of business and STEM, and it combines sort of the 2 fields that I'm interested in. So in regards to what I spent my 4 years in high school doing, at mYe, I was the former president of the Youth Leadership Committee. And as part of the Youth Leadership Committee, I helped create the Metro Detroit Youth Fair and myebeat.com, which this seminar is obviously associated with, and also some STEM workshops at the Detroit Public Library. And because of all of this volunteer work, I ended up getting the Presidential Volunteer Service Award. It's both gold and bronze. In 2019, I also attended mYe's global service trip. And recently, since I'm very passionate about creative writing, I created my own curriculum for a mYe creative writing for elementary students class, and I'm enjoying that immensely. In terms of other extracurriculars, this past year, I've also served as the VP of Community Service for Adams DECA, and DECA is a business organization, and they also have competitions. So regarding the competitions, I placed in the international top 10 this year, and I've qualified for internationals twice and been a state finalist 3 times. In addition to that, at school, I have been the captain of JV tennis since sophomore year, and I've also been a member of Science Olympiad. And returning to the point about my passion for creative writing, I've also received the gold and silver keys from the Scholastics Art and Writing Awards.
Thank you, Grace. Finally, we have Ann Zhang, who is the former vice president of mYe's YLC team. She is attending the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business in the fall. For a final time, please welcome Ann.
Thank you for the introduction, Troy. Hi, everyone. I'm Ann. And so for extracurriculars, I spent a lot of time in Adams DECA, and I was the VP of Member Events for 2 years. And senior year, I was VP of Community Service alongside Grace. And at school, I'm also part of National Honor Society, the Adams JV Tennis. And outside of school, I'm a teacher assistant at Chinese School of Greater Detroit. In the past, I've also partook in the Huayu Chinese writing competition and was a national finalist. So at mYe, as Troy said, I was the vice president of Michigan Youth Empowerment's Youth Leadership Committee. And so as part of that, I worked on our MDYF Fair, mYe Beat, the STEM workshops that we are currently working on, the Detroit Public Library. And through this, I got a Presidential Volunteer Service Awards for both gold and bronze in 2 separate years. I was part of mYe's global service trips, and currently, or this past year, I've been a TA for the Business Entrepreneurship Excellence class. And last year, I had the honor of interning at mYe over the summer, and it was a great learning experience, and I really did improve a lot after that experience.
Thank you, guys. Those were amazing. So anyways, jumping right in. Let's start with how would you prepare yourself for college applications? Let's start with the question, how did you prepare yourself throughout high school for college apps? For example, what clubs and school courses did you take, or how did you manage your time? How did you find something you're like genuinely passionate about and make that passion show? Let's start with, let's say, Grace.
Okay, so we have created here sort of a brief rundown of our general advice that we would give to people in terms of joining clubs throughout all 4 years of high school. So we have our general advice, and then we have some slightly more specific examples centered around what specific types of clubs you're working in.
So I guess I'll start with joining clubs in 9th grade. I love freshman year because that's the year you can experiment the most when joining clubs. So join anything that you might think you'd be slightly interested in, just because a lot of later years, especially junior year, you'll be really busy with everything else going on. So you might not have time to perhaps join the clubs that you think you might like now. And even if you don't like the clubs, it's okay to drop. There are a variety of clubs that are offered at each school. You could try to join as many different types as you want. There's a lot of competition clubs and volunteer clubs and even some academic clubs. So just try to get yourself involved with the groups. And it's also a great experience to have fun and meet people your first year at high school.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And so after your 9th grade, you're going to be a sophomore in high school. So right now, your goal is just to participate in as many clubs as you're genuinely interested in. So you want to go all the way. You want to talk with the teachers that advise the club. So every club will have a teacher that is your head advisor, and they'll know a lot about the club's history. and what some of the responsibilities may look like if you do end up running for a leadership position. So it's really good to just form a rapport with those teachers so you have a future with the club. And I would also reduce the number of clubs that you're in, just because once you're putting in more time into the clubs you're really interested in, you may not be able to balance your workload if you're in a ton of clubs. So I would recommend just dropping the ones you aren't too hot about. And also go to all of the events that are offered within the club. So if it's a competition-based club, try to do well at the competitions and place. It's a volunteering club. I would go to lots of different volunteering events and get those hours up so you can qualify for different volunteering awards. And if you want to, you can also take the class that the advisor of your club teaches, just so they can get to know you as both a student and as a member of their club. So if you wanted to get a recommendation letter from them in the future, they would be able to write about both of those aspects.
And then junior year, 11th grade is really when things start to get intense, because this is generally your hardest year in terms of course load. And it's also when you really want to start ramping up things like leadership positions and club involvement. So in 11th grade, start applying for or seeking out as many leadership positions in your clubs as possible. And with that comes the fact that you need to narrow down which clubs you really want to be committed to, because you most likely will not be able to have leadership positions in every single one, or even have the time to put into all of these different clubs. So narrow down which ones really mean the most to you and really go for the leadership positions in those. So that way, once you're done, once you're in 11th or 12th grade and you spent 9th and 10th grade really putting a lot of time into these clubs, you have something to show for it. You have this leadership position or some sort of award. And don't be afraid to apply for leadership positions, even if you don't think you'll get them, because the worst that can happen is that they say no, and you can move on from there and apply to a different leadership position after that. Moving on to 12th grade, there's not a whole lot of advice here except for just enjoy yourself. You've worked very hard for the past 4 years, and in 12th grade, you're also swamped with college applications. So clubs are not a huge priority at that point.
So this is just a brief overview with some examples of the clubs that we did in high school. So you can take a look at our interests and how we used clubs to sort of match those interests. So I did 3 main things, I would say. I did a lot of biology or STEM-based clubs. I also did a lot of environmental-based clubs, and lastly, I did a lot of volunteering. So within those 3 groups, I did a bunch of clubs that fit into those groups. So this would basically just be a repeat of the bio I said in the beginning. I did a lot of STEM-based clubs in school and a lot of volunteering out of school, and then a lot of environmental work outside of school as well. And I also did many internships that fit into those categories. So it comes together as a really cohesive application. It shows that I have a really strong interest in these 3 areas and that I've been committed to these subjects for a while now, and it shows in my extracurriculars. And just remember that something is only important to your application if it's important to you. So if you strongly believe in pursuing something, that will definitely be something I would put into your application, even if you think it might be a silly activity or one that other people may look down on, because as long as it matters to you, I think it's worthy of putting on your application.
For me, as I've said before, I did a lot of work with mYe. And what really meant a lot to me about all the work we did at mYe is that it was really about sort of making education opportunities more equal and filling in the gaps that our traditional education system has sort of left behind, such as more newer STEM topics that are not necessarily taught in your average middle or high school. So I talked about that a lot in my application, just the work that I've done with mYe. And as I've said before, I also greatly enjoy creative writing. And I did highlight that partly in my application, just with the creating my own curriculum for the creative writing class at mYe. And also myebeat.com is writing adjacent to, since we do publish articles on there.
So for me, I also spent a lot of time in mYe as part of the YLC, and I really enjoyed just all the projects we did and actually making an impact in the society around us. And also, I also TA'd for business entrepreneurship class, which was really important to me, and I really wanted to get involved in business because that was something I was interested in, and it really did greatly help as you can see, because I'm currently going to Ross. And also outside of that, I volunteered as a teacher assistant for Chinese school. This wasn't something I did because of perhaps I'm interested in a field. It was more of a passion project because just as when I was growing up, I've always been to Chinese school, so it's kind of been an integral part of my life. So it was greatly beneficial to me, and I wanted to become part of that experience. So I felt like my extracurriculars were well spread out in focusing on areas I was really interested in and really benefited me.
Okay, so now we just want to touch on course selections. So course selections in regards to what classes you'll be taking throughout high school are very important. And it's always a good idea to keep your eye on the long run. And that's why we advise you guys to make a 4-year plan. You know, have some sort of spreadsheet or table that you list out what classes are you going to take freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, and even senior year. If you're already in high school, it can't hurt to still plan for the years that you have left in high school. And if you are earlier on in the high school process, this is definitely a good thing to do. And keep an eye out for more difficult or advanced classes such as honors or AP/IB, depending on your exact school system, because these can demonstrate how you are challenging yourself academically. And that's very important to colleges because they want to see that you're capable of handling the rigor of a real college course load. With AP and IB classes, these are also useful because if you, at the end of the class, take the AP exam or the IB exam, you may be able to get college credit at whatever institution you end up at. So that may even save you money. And the fact that the AP and IB exams are standardized also goes to show your school, if you have good scores on those tests, that on a nationwide standardized test, you have a proven proficiency in some subject like AP Calc. There's also the option of dual enrollment. So dual enrollment is when you take classes at a local community college or local private university. And this can be an option for you depending on where your course load lies and your specific school district policy. But at the end of all of this, when you have all your classes planned and you're thinking about going ahead and taking them, remember to consider your GPA, specifically your unweighted GPA, because this can tell your college that you're applying to a lot about how you have spent your last 4 years academically, because your unweighted GPA is out of 4.0. There's no extra bonuses for taking honors or AP classes. This is pretty much standardized across the country. It really tells your college how you did, because a GPA is a long-term thing that is built up every single semester at your school after every single class you take. So it's very cumulative and it gives them a really good picture of that. So always remember to preserve that unweighted GPA. And yeah, so we just have a brief rundown of how we did because all 3 of us went to schools with the AP system rather than the IB. So this is just our experiences with that.
All right, so in 9th grade, I took 2 AP classes, which is pretty uncommon, but our school is pretty flexible with the curriculum, and they did have like a class that was only for freshmen, so I got a little bit lucky there. And in 10th grade, I took 4 AP classes and 2 dual enrollment classes, and if you look down below, basically dual enrollment is when you're in high school and you take a class through like a college, and it's not the same as an AP class because you're taking it through a college, so it shows up as a college level transcript. So these are your college level grades. And typically these classes will be a lot harder than your normal high school classes. So I took 2 dual enrollment classes in math. And then in 11th grade, I took 4 APs, and then this year I took 7. I took the test for all of my APs as well, and I think that's really important if you do want to get credit for college. And a lot of my friends who took a ton of APs and also took the test, they're entering college as a sophomore next year just because they skipped a lot of those entry-level freshman prerequisites. So that's definitely something I would recommend, is if you're taking an AP class, definitely take the test as well.
For me, so I went to Adams High School, whereas Jasmine went to Troy. Troy is a lot more, a bit more flexible with their APs and whether or not freshmen can take them. So I did not take any APs in freshman year. My sophomore year, I took 2. In 11th grade, I took 7. And in 12th grade, this past year, I took 4 APs and then 4 dual enrollment classes. And the breakdown for that was 3 of them were in math and 1 was in philosophy. I ended up taking dual enrollment classes because I wanted to continue sort of challenging myself rather than taking sort of filler classes, because by the time I got to senior year, I didn't really have many classes left at my school that I was interested in taking, so I looked elsewhere.
So I also attended Adams High School with Grace, and so freshman year I took 1 AP test, but I didn't take the class for that, and that was AP Chinese. In 10th grade, I took 3 APs, which I know isn't always usual at Adams at least. It's because that the middle school I went to was in a different state, so they had like different standards and abilities to test out. So in middle school, I had already taken like some of the core prerequisites for some of the classes at Adams or the AP classes. So I was lucky to be able to take 3. In 11th grade, I took 6 APs, and in 12th grade, I took 5 APs. I didn't take all my AP tests because for the college I'm going to, senior year, I realized that not all of my credits could transfer, so I decided I wasn't going to take all of them.
All right, and as you're entering high school, if you're already in high school, as you're entering senior year or junior year especially, you are going to experience an increase in workload, and this comes with learning how to manage your time a little bit more efficiently. So the first thing you should know is that you almost certainly have more time than you think. For example, if you have spare time during class or if you're waiting in line while you're running errands, it's always useful to just keep your notes online so you can look over anything. I would also recommend working with your friends in the same class on difficult assignments, especially like AP chemistry for me. I did do a lot of the problem sets with my friends so we could walk each other through the questions, and it saved me a lot of time. And also make sure to have a healthy lifestyle. Leave time every day to work out or to pursue a passion project or creative interest. And also be sure to learn life skills before you go off to college. And that includes learning how to cook for yourself, learning how to, do the laundry and other household chores. And lastly, multitasking can be super efficient. Sometimes you can just, if you have to watch a documentary for AP Enviro, say, you could just throw that on and do your math homework at the same time. And you're kind of doing 2 birds with 1 stone. And you also must be aware of the time commitments that come with your activities before you sign up for them. So for example, sports are a big one. It depends on how invested you want to be in the sports, but usually they are huge time commitments. And for me personally, I did track and field and I did cross country. And for both, for track, I was a varsity runner starting from freshman year. So that meant I had to be at school working out maybe 20 hours a week. So that's definitely something you should consider before you do a sport. And leadership positions often come with a much heavier workload because not only do you have to, participate in the competition or volunteer, but you also have to manage everything that goes on behind the scenes and the things that maybe you didn't necessarily know about while you were a member in the club. So if you're interested in running for a leadership position, but you're not sure if it's something that will be feasible for your schedule, I would talk to someone who's currently on board and ask how many hours a week it takes them to get everything done. And if you can fit it into your schedule, great, definitely do that. But if you can't, I think it's okay to definitely just take a step back in order to make sure that everything's running smoothly.
Next slide.
Okay, so the next slide we have is about the importance of having a sense of identity. And I feel like many people don't realize just how important this is. Above all, first and foremost, you have to have a self-driven purpose when you go into high school. You have to know why you want it and know that it's you yourself who wants it. And yes, other people might be pushing you in that direction, but ultimately everything is up to you. I think this is especially important, especially considering that during high school, you'll be really busy. So you need to have that sense of purpose to sustain your study schedule, your extracurricular load. And a lot of times you might be feeling overwhelmed, and it can help you get through that if you remember you're doing it for yourself. And also, it's just better to keep your mental health in a good state. And I think Grace is going to add on a little bit more to
Yeah.
about this sense of identity.
Just touching back on the point of how all of this, your entire time in high school, when you're, grinding out some very long physics assignment, that we remember that it's for you, and everything you're doing, whether you spent like your entire weekend or your entire summer doing some sort of internship or volunteering, that this was all to sort of improve you, to make you smarter, to make you a better person, to make you more compassionate, all of these things, that this was all to better you in some way, shape, or form, not just to get you into college. If you get into college, that's a great thing that would happen because of all that. However, that is not the only reason why you should be doing all of this. We hear a lot about kids who, join clubs because they want to get into college, or they take this class because they think that'll get them into college. So we just have to remember that you are doing this for, or at least you should be doing this for, a reason aside from just getting yourself into college. Because what happens at the end of the day is the college application process is very unpredictable. And the three of us here are sort of the successful examples of this process. However, you never know what could happen, and it's really hard to have any sense of security in this process. However, if this process does not work out for you, you have to be okay with how you have spent the last 4 years of your life. Whether or not you have a positive outcome at the end of it, you have to feel good about how you spent your time. Because 4 years, when you're 18 years old, 4 years is 22% of your life. That is a very significant amount of time. So just be okay with that. Be okay with how you spent your time.
Right. And if I could add on for a second, like if your goal in high school is to get into college, you're going to look back and you're going to realize that you missed a lot of stuff along the way. And it's good to remember that college it's not the end of your life. You're not just gonna, vaporize after you get into a college. You still have to deal with actually going to school and finding a job and everything that follows. So definitely, like when you think about the type of person you want to be, I would just, think about where you are in your 30s, because I think that it's definitely a more long-term goal than just getting into a specific school. And if you really are passionate about what you do and you're doing it because you like doing it, or you're doing it because you feel that you can learn a lot from it, I think it'll really show. I don't know if there are any Troy Colts in here, go Troy, but we have a lot of really, really STEM focused kids, and we have a lot of really brilliant kids. But I did win a lot of scholarships from the school and awards from the school. And I spoke with my teachers and advisors about it, and they said it was because I had a lot of integrity and compassion in everything I did. And I think that to me means a lot more than, my test scores or my competitions, because at the end of the day, it's really about how you treated the people around you and what kind of person you are and how you went about just existing in high school. And that's what people are going to remember. So definitely just keep that in mind. College is definitely not the end all be all, and just have a really good time, and do not have any regrets either.
Thanks for that advice. They were really informative. One more thing, I see some people are putting some questions in the chat. Make sure you put in the Q&A box. It should be right left of the chat. Like if you hover your mouse over there, If you go left a bit, it should say Q&A chat. Leave your questions there. We will answer them at the very end of the seminar. So hang in there. But anyways, now let's jump back to standardized testing and APs, something and I bet a lot of people attending here too despise. Are they important? If so, what tests are? What tests should I take to frame myself and my college app? What scores should we aim for?
Okay, so coming back to the point of GPA that I mentioned earlier, again, unweighted GPA is much, much more important than weighted GPA, simply because weighted GPA is not standardized across schools. Like if you go to, if you look even across the state at some other high school, they may calculate weighted GPA differently than your school does. And because of that, unweighted GPA is generally much more emphasized by colleges, just so, they can get a more unbiased view of how you have done in your classes. And that brings us to the point that colleges look at both your grades and the difficulty of your classes. So if you got an A in an extremely easy class, that does not mean as much as if you got an A in, let's say AP Physics. They mean very different things. So of course you want to do well regardless of which class you're taking. Just be aware that colleges are both looking at the difficulty and your grade in the class. However, that being said, you really need to preserve your GPA regardless of class rigor. So if you know that this class is really going to drop your GPA because of how difficult it is, then that may be something to reconsider when you are signing up for classes. So along those lines, there is something called the holistic application, which is a process that college admissions offices use when they are evaluating you as an applicant. So what the holistic application means is that colleges are not generally looking at individual portions of your application. They're looking at what those portions come together and make you as a whole. And that sort of brings up the phrase that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So hopefully once they evaluate you as a whole package, then you seem like an incredibly good applicant. And that brings us to the point that a 4.0 is not necessarily a golden ticket into college. It's just another factor that they evaluate when they're looking at you as an applicant. So if you have messed up, let's say freshman year, maybe on one or two classes you didn't do too well, then it's not super worth worrying about at this point. Once you are past that, if something is in the past and you cannot change it, just work on improving yourself where you are now. Because a 4.0 is it's not really the reason that anyone will ever be rejected from college, and it won't be the reason that someone ever gets in. It's much more than that, just due to the whole holistic application process. And then something you could also keep an eye on, which is dependent on your school, is your class rank. So for me personally at Adams High School, we did not have class rank. We were never told like what percentage we are in the class or whatever. So if that is something that your school offers, then that can be a good way for you to keep a gauge on where you are in the context of your school.
And if I could add on to class rank, like every single school has a different policy. So definitely I would ask your counselor what your school's policy is. But do not stress about class rank. I think your application goes a lot further than your GPA. But if your school does have a class rank and you do happen to be valedictorian, congrats. And that's definitely something I would put on your application as well.
So going off of what Grace said about course rigor, AP classes are one of the things that definitely look rigorous if you take them. So if you've already decided that perhaps you're suitable for APs and you can handle the rigor that they offer, that's very beneficial to you because one, although weighted GPA isn't as important, it's still nice to have, and it definitely looks great if you have a higher weighted GPA. So they do boost your GPA and factors into the weighted GPA. They're easily to quantify because there's less wiggle room. With a lot of the other parts of the college application, like the essays, the rec letter, there's nothing that's a definite good and a definite bad. A lot of these are very subjective. So AP tests are one of the things that can be objective because you can obviously measure out how many of them you took. And if you do good on the tests afterwards, you can get college credit, which can save you a lot of money and time. So when you're thinking about taking AP tests though, we would suggest you probably like take a couple, not a lot if you get first started on it, just to see the amount of rigor that they actually offer. I think at each school it's probably different, and a lot of times it depends on the teachers who teach those classes. At the same time, you also want to take note within AP tests themselves, there's a lot of variety in rigor. So if you can take the time to ask like your fellow students or people in the grades above you which AP tests they thought were doable or how much workload there was for each one, I think that'll be really helpful for you when you try to decide which ones you actually want to take and if you're able to handle them at all.
All right, let's go over the dreaded standardized tests. So you probably know that there are two really big standardized test giants, and that would be the SAT and the ACT. If you live in America, I feel like a lot of students take these tests. You do get one free SAT from your school, but for ACT, you do have to register and sort of pay for that yourself. So that's something to keep in mind. And if you're going to take these tests soon or you're thinking about taking these tests in the next few years, just know that practice definitely is very important to getting the score that you want. And there are many ways you can practice for these tests. So the first is Khan Academy, which is a free resource. They have lots of great videos and instructional essays, and they also have practice questions that are timed like the test. So you can definitely study a lot over there. And you can also borrow test practice books from the library, or you can buy them if you enjoy marking them up, just like you would during the test. And we do have some very strongly worded recommendations. Barron's and Kaplan's tend to do very well for both SAT, ACT, and subject tests, which are not going to be counted in the future anymore. But Kaplan's is definitely my favorite. I love Kaplan's. I use it for everything. And I definitely found a bone to pick with the Princeton Review just because I know it's super, super popular and the name carries a lot of weight with it, but I didn't think it was very instructional, and I think its strategies were probably more harmful than helpful. So I do not recommend that one, but if it works for you, definitely go use it. And we also included our standardized testing scores below. You can notice that we pretty much did not get perfect scores. Those are very, very rare. Do not feel badly if you can't get like a 1600. That's crazy. It's okay. And even if you do get a 1600, there are lots of other people with other 1600s. So your test scores definitely do not play a large role in your application. It's just something that's nice to have, and it sort of reinforces what kind of student you are. But definitely I would register early for these tests, especially because we have a pandemic going on. And even though things are reopening, who knows what the future might bring. I know during COVID, they definitely canceled a lot of test administration dates, and students basically had their money refunded, and then they had to go sign up for another date. And one of my friends signed up for like 6 SAT tests, and I don't even know if she's taken one yet. So definitely register early, and by that I mean 4 to 5 months in advance, because spots do fill up really fast, and if you miss a spot, then you miss it. And know the difference between the tests. So the SAT is out of 1600, the ACT is out of 36. You do not have to take either of them, because I think a lot of schools are going test optional next year, but if you want to, you definitely can. And both of them just have core sections on reading, writing, and math. And lastly, know the test before you take it. Especially with writing and reading, there are a lot of answers that could be interpreted as correct. But if you understand the test and what the test is trying to find out about the students, you can start narrowing down your answer choices to the answer that the test wants you to pick, which can be frustrating, but doing a lot of practice tests will help you recognize what the test is actually looking for in a question, and that can be very helpful for boosting your score.
Just returning to the point of registering early. So registering early really gives you a sense of pressure that by this certain date, you have to be ready because you paid for it, you have a seat reserved at this testing center. So I highly, highly advise registering early. So that way you just have a better timeline, because it's easy to sit here and study a little bit and go, oh, yay, I'll take it next year. But if you have a date, let's say, oh, I'm going to take this next year in February, then you can set up a timeline based on that. When do you have to have what completed by? When should you be feeling the most ready, and things like that.
Thanks again for those points. I should keep those pieces of advice for myself. But anyways, to the thing we are all here for, college apps. What are they? How do you make and frame your app? With someone like me who has never even touched a Common App, it would be great to give some helpful tips on college applications for the next few years. Let's start with a timeline. In general, how do I create a solid timeline to do my college app?
So, okay, let's start with the application timeline, like Troy said. So for your timeline, early summer, junior year, you're gonna have to have your college list ready. So what colleges do you actually want to apply to, and which ones do you want to go to? We suggest you have like a tangible reason why you want to apply for these specific schools. It can't just be because, oh, the name sounds cool, or oh, it's ranked really high. I think most colleges, when you apply to their school, one of the questions you're going to have to answer, it's usually like a short essay, is why do you want to go to this school? So you need to know that reason. And then the second thing you have to keep in mind when you're making this list is believe in yourself. So maybe a lot of schools you think are reaches, or you don't think you're going to get in, you should put them on your list if you really want to go, because who knows, you might just get in. A lot of this process, it's a lot of different factors that come in, so the results might not be what you expect. So go for it and reach for the skies. And so after that, throughout the summer, you need to start writing your essays for the Common App. Just to recap, so most college applications, they go through the Common App process. Some also go through a different process. You can look it up for the individual school you want to apply to. And usually in these college applications, they consist mainly of your rec letters, your essays, and then your stats, like your GPA, your clubs and extracurriculars that you do. So when you start writing the essays, you need to start that during the summer. Earlier is even better. And so you want to prioritize the supplemental essays and start working on them based on which ones are due first. So for example, if you decided you want to apply to this school early decision or early action compared to the normal deadline for submission, you probably want to prioritize those first before the other ones. And after you have all your essays done, in late summer, you should start editing. And then by the beginning of the school year, you need to have a list of people ready to get your rec letters from and ask them for your recommendation letters. Maybe a good idea is one from a super important extracurricular. Get them for teachers. A lot of the teachers people suggest are ones from core subjects, and usually during junior or senior year, and make sure you let them know ahead of time. I would also talk to people at your school who came before already graduated about what your teachers prefer, or directly ask them, because I remember when I was preparing everything for rec letters, it was at the end of junior year, which was really early. And my friend had told me that she already talked to all her teachers and they all agreed to get her recommendations letters written during the summer because that's how they preferred it. And she goes to another school. So I asked all my teachers, and it turned out they didn't want those things till the beginning of the school year, which was what I believe most teachers didn't want to be asked, because summer it's easy to get everything lost. But make sure you just ask in advance because it's a little different for each school.
And just to elaborate on like the Common App portal, so there are two types of main application systems. The first one is the Common App, which is what a lot more universities use. And the second one is the Coalition app, which covers a lot of schools, but not nearly as many as the Common App. And if you qualify for need-based financial aid, I would consider using the Coalition app just because it is free and it only has schools on it that have very generous financial aid. So if that's something you're interested in, I would definitely check that out. And like Anne said, it does vary by school. So I, like, for example, MIT and Georgetown have their own application portals. So you will have to make like a separate account for that and keep track of how that works, because I haven't used either of them, but they do work differently from the Common App. So if you're researching schools, definitely check out what sort of portals they use early on in your research process, because that's going to be very important as you're actually writing out your applications.
So we just wanted to clear up some easily confused terms that we may be using when we're talking about college apps. So this is a good table of the different types of early admissions. So our first type is early decision, which we will often refer to as ED. So early decision is a legally binding agreement that you make when you apply for an early decision college, in which you apply for this college early. They're generally due by November 1st. And if you get in, you must go. You must enroll. You cannot apply to any other schools. You pretty much, if you get in, that's your school. Some examples of early decision schools are places like UPenn or UChicago also offers an early decision program. So we also have early action, which is very similar to your regular application, you know, what you think of when you think about college apps, in which you can submit multiple early action applications, and there's no commitment to have to enroll. So you will have some time to weigh your options and decide later on. And basically, the only difference between early action and your regular application is just that you'll get to know your decision earlier. And some examples of early action schools are MIT and University of Michigan. So regarding restrictive early action is similar to early decision in that you may only submit one application. However, there's no commitment to enroll after you get in. So you're still able to decide, just like with early action. So restrictive early action is the policy that most of the Ivy Leagues have switched over to going with, and so did Stanford. So that'd be Stanford, Harvard, Princeton, I think Yale too. All of these places are following a restrictive early action policy. And they generally switched over to this policy because they believed it was a little bit better for some people who are considering financial aid, because with early decision, you don't really get to weigh your financial aid packages between different schools. It's just you get in and you go, and you just hope that they give you enough financial aid to make it work. And then we also have rolling applications, which is not a super common type of early admission. And basically what this means is that there's no set date at which all of the decisions come out. It's just sort of the earlier you apply, the earlier you will receive a decision. I believe this past year, Michigan State University had sort of a rolling admissions process in which the sooner you apply, the sooner you get a decision, and there's no strict date in which the decisions all come out. However, when you're looking at all of these types and all of the guidelines for them, always check with the specific school that you're applying to's website, because they will have more details, because there are certain exemptions that are a little bit complicated, so we won't get into them today. So just make sure you look into your specific school. And then just about the point of deciding between whether you're going to apply for a school early versus regular. If you're set on a dream college, you know that you want to go somewhere and this has been your dream for years and years, go ahead and apply early. There are some statistics to support perhaps the idea that applying early may increase your chances, but that is always up for debate. And something important to consider when you are applying early, though, is just depending on the specific early admissions type that the school offers, such as early decision, make sure you consider finances with your family, and also make a college list beforehand. of just your broader list aside from just this dream college?
And so after you're done applying early, you're going to want to apply regular decision or RD. And this is where you're going to be applying to a lot of your schools. That would be RD. And basically when you pick the list of colleges that you want to apply to, some things you want to keep in mind are you want to pick based on programs and not just numbers or the overall school ranking of prestige on US News. So definitely, like, let's say you're interested in computer science, although Carnegie Mellon may not be ranked like top 5 in the country for colleges as an overall university, it's one of the best for computer science. So if you know you're interested in comp sci, definitely apply there. They have a great comp sci program. And also remember, quality over quantity. You don't want to apply to 20 schools first because it's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than you might think it is. And if you apply to 10 schools that you would never go to, even if you got in, it's not really worth it, right? And validation can be fun, but definitely just keep in mind that every single application you send out will cost a couple dozen dollars. That was a weird phrasing, but it'll be around $100 to send out an application. So definitely keep that in mind as well. You do not want to spam colleges. Also consider the 3 categories of colleges that you want to apply to. So the first one is safety colleges, and these are schools that you're reasonably sure you will get into. I want to estimate you want to be like 70% sure you will be accepted. And one thing you should make sure to do is when you're applying to safeties, make sure that there's schools that you would be very happy attending if you did not get into your matches or reaches, or if they offer great financial aid, just so that you're happy with your backup plan. And matches are schools that you think you have a reasonable chance of getting into. I want to say like a third to a half. And these are schools that you think you would be a really good fit for and that you're a competitive applicant for. And of course, make sure that you'd love to go there as well. And reaches are schools that you think it's unlikely you'll get into. So like, let's just say 10%. And for these schools, just like, you know what, shoot for the stars, apply to them if you wanna, and make sure that you do a lot of research for your individual schools. There are lots of schools that just have their own policies for every single aspect of the college application. And when you're researching schools, I would treat them as like a person, because each school does tend to have, my voice slipped for a second. Each school does tend to have their own personality, and the student body will be different for every single school. So when you're researching these schools, you want to make sure that not only you're going to be going to like a good academic program, but you're going to really enjoy your time there and that you're really going to be a great fit for the school itself.
Yeah, and while you're researching, most colleges, at least right now, are hosting a lot of seminars, sort of like this, honestly, over Zoom, in which they have students who normally function as tour guides sort of introduce you to the school and talk over their programs and what it's like to actually go there. And those are incredibly valuable resources if you're looking at potentially attending that college, because you can hear firsthand from people who actually go there, what is it like? What is the campus culture? How friendly are the professors? Things like that. So you can always ask those people who are hosting those seminars specific questions about the school.
And the good thing about going to these seminars is some schools, depending on which schools you're applying to, also take demonstrated interest into the said school or said program into account when they make decisions. So showing up to these seminars or going on these tours could help your chances potentially.
All right, thanks for those points. That was a lot to take in. Now, specifically speaking on the essay portion, I know that this is an extremely anxiety-inducing and very stressful part of the application process. So I wanted to ask you for your thoughts on how to tackle essays, such as when you should start and how to craft it into something that really represents who you are and your values.
So here we have a bit of essay 101 / frequently asked questions. So people often just as we did, struggle back in the day to think about how many people should read your essay. So at the end of the day, writing is subjective. No matter who you show it to, everyone will come up with a slightly different opinion on your essay. Regardless of whether they liked it or not, everyone will be slightly different. Exactly what they took away from it is also going to be slightly different. So it just comes down to a question of whose opinion do you matter the most? Because no two people are going to tell you the same thing. So you just have to decide, who do you trust the most? Who do you want to hear from the most? I personally had some friends who are writers, just because of, my personal interest in writing. And I really valued their opinions when I was working on my essays, because I knew that they were familiar with the sphere of writing memoirs and creative writing and all of that. So that's always a good question to ask yourself, like, whose opinion do you trust or value the most? Because we are not, and your friends will not be, and your parents will not be college admissions officers. So there's no way to predict exactly how your college admissions officer will react. So just go to someone you trust in regards to writing and listen to them. And then also, while you're getting these opinions from other people, make sure that your specific voice or what you want to say through your essay doesn't get lost. Because you may have written this essay with an intention of making point A, but then someone who read your essay thinks, oh, I think this is actually heading towards point B. You can talk that over with them and show them what you were actually trying to say, and maybe you can work towards there. But don't let somebody else really overrule what you truly want this essay to say. My second point is just write a lot of drafts. Google Docs is free, paper is very cheap. Do not be afraid to just keep writing and take up space, because the more drafts you write, hopefully the closer you'll get to what you're truly envisioning. And then there's also a common question of, when do you abandon an essay and start again? Because oftentimes you'll come up with ideas that seem very promising and you're really enjoying them. But once you start writing it, it doesn't really feel like it's going to pan out. What you have in your brain does not translate super well to an actual college essay. And when that happens, you can think about it from the perspective of, again, a college admissions officer. If they read this essay, what would they learn about you? Because these essays are, once again, just ways for you to show your college admissions officer something specific about you. Because your essay is something you can control, right? So you can decide, what is the narrative about you going to be? So when you're writing an essay idea that you think might not actually work out, you can think of it like that. Does this convey the right information about me? And if it doesn't, then that idea may not be worth pursuing. So here's an example of more or less what my Google Drive folders look like. I had approximately 15 drafts for my Common App essay alone, which is one essay out of the many, many, many essays I had to write. So this is an example of what I mean when I say write a lot of drafts. Don't be afraid to just go, okay, so this sounds good like this, but I want to make these changes. So I'm going to make a copy and I'm going to try and write this. I like the ability to make copies of my Google Docs, just so that the original version is still preserved, just in case I decide I actually liked what I had before better than what I came up with. So don't be afraid to write drafts.
So going off to essay topics, when you're writing your essays, these are extremely important, and they can determine like the direction of your essay, because as Grace said, the ultimate goal of these essays is just to help show you as a person, the context in which you live, your personality, your dreams, your aspirations. There are a lot of people who think that essays are the only component of your personality, and that's not true. There are also many other factors that play into it, even though essays play a really important part. And I feel like because of this, a lot of people, they will read example essays or something, and they'll say, oh, okay, so a person who got into so-and-so college, they had this personality, they were really funny and really sarcastic. I'm not really funny, I'm not really sarcastic, but I think in order to get into this college that I really like, I need to be funny and I need to be sarcastic. So they'll go out and they'll write their essay and they'll try to make it funny and sarcastic. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But then you have to remember that there are so many different aspects and parts of this. For example, in your day-to-day life, for example, at school, even if you try to portray yourself a certain way, I'm sure like a certain part of your true personality will show through, and chances are you're not going to be pretending to be someone else all 4 years of high school. And so when it comes to write recommendation letters, for example, it can be really jarring if the personality that your teachers talk about is really different from the personality you portray yourself as. For example, your essay is funny and sarcastic, but your teachers are like such a hardworking, serious student, So I think you have to keep that in mind, that you want to be true to who you are. Don't try to be someone else. That could very easily backfire on you. And so make sure when you're writing your essays, you personally shine through. And I think one of the best ways to do this is through writing things that are personal to you. Don't read too many examples before writing, because it's easy to get carried away. You might like this essay and you're like, oh, so smart, they did it this way. And then another essay is also amazing because they used another special trick, or they were very emotional. And then you start trying to incorporate all those things into yours, and they don't really reflect you as a person. So in the end, your personality ends up being diluted and even lost in the translation. So all in all, authenticity is the most important part.
Yeah, to the point of don't read too many examples, it's very tempting to go and look up, essays that got someone into Stanford, or essays that got someone into Harvard. It's very tempting to do that. And it's natural that, you're just very anxious about the process and you want to see how other people did it so you can, in a sense, try and emulate what they did. But that is kind of the opposite of what college essays are supposed to be, because they're supposed to be authentic. They're supposed to be just about you, not about anyone else. You're representing yourself. You're not representing all of these essays that you read and tried to take bits and pieces from. So don't give in to the temptation of reading way too many examples and then freaking out because you don't think you can write like that.
Right. And if I could, go ahead.
Please go, Jasmine. Yeah.
Thank you. Like Ann said, essays are definitely not the only component that can show your personality. And I think that's really important when you're writing, because who you are as a person will come through in your recommendations. It'll come through in your activities list. It'll come through in your resume if your college allows you to submit that. And everything should line up so that there's no gap between what your essays are saying about you and what everything else is saying about you. So I guess to this end, just be honest, be really honest in your essays, because if there is an inconsistency, that does look a little bit suspicious to the admissions officer. And in my opinion, a successful application is one where you really authentically explain who you are through every single component of the application. So all of it should tie together to form one message, and that should be just conveying who you are as a person. So just take it easy on your essay, write about whatever is really important to you. For example, I wrote about my favorite movie, and my AO said it was a really good essay. And, it's not something that people typically write about for their essays. So just write about whatever's important to you and whatever made you think or reevaluate what you were doing as a student. And that will more likely than not have a lot more passion and character in it than something that you're kind of feeling lukewarm about.
So during the process of writing your essay, it's important that you don't rush a topic that you're not sure about. For example, like if you don't really know what exactly it's asking, or if you don't really know like what you're going to do with this idea, you should really take the time to really think about how you're going to develop it. And there's many aspects to this, but I want to give an example for when I was writing my supplemental essay for Ross. Um, well, for U of M, actually, in general, they said, like, why do you want to go to U of M, or why do you want to go to this school and this major, right? So in the beginning, I did a lot of research about U of M, why I wanted to go to it, and I actually already knew a lot of these answers beforehand, which was really great. But then I was like doing further research, and there was a blog about Ross applications in general. And one of the points that they made was that if you want to apply to the school, when they ask you why you want to be like apply to U of M, you want to be specific to Ross only. So that really shaped a lot of my later renditions of that essay. I didn't use a lot of what I wrote in the beginning, but it was really definitely helpful, and it was just good to have. So make sure you know what you are actually answering and what they're actually looking for each step in your application. And also, when you're writing your essays, it's really easy just to get carried away to try something new, but I think it's best if you stick with what already works for you. I know by junior year, you're going to have written a lot of essays, and so you probably have already a process down. Just stick to that. It's different for everyone, so don't get carried away by what anyone says. And for me, that meant writing and just waiting like a week or two to read what I wrote, because a lot of times I think I write great and it turns out it's terrible, or I think I wrote something terrible and it turns out it's not as bad as I thought. So I think it's different for everyone. When you're writing, it's really easy just to get carried away with big vocabulary and flowery language. I think that's good to some extent, but you also want to keep in mind that there's a word limit. And so you want to make sure that every word you write in your essays count. The admissions officer, they're not going to know much about you. Like, they're meeting a new person for the first time, and you only have so much space, so much words to express who you are as a person. So try to avoid fluff. Make sure that every word you pick counts and makes a point. And of course, revise and peer edit. Go ask your teachers. They're great resources. A lot of your English teachers probably have already read a lot of college applications or college essays, so they probably have a lot of experience. They're definitely a good resource. Don't be scared. Just show them what you got and ask them for advice. And the last piece of advice is to reuse your essays. It's really good for you and your mental health, because perhaps at the beginning you're like, 10, 15 essays, I can do this. I have all summer, or like I have even longer. I can space it out. I can survive. But then midway through, you'll start realizing that it's actually a lot harder than you think. And so if you want to be in the best mental state so that you're most productive and you're able to carry out all parts of your application and its completion, you probably need to recycle some essays and reuse, and that's okay.
To the point of knowing your writing process, like Anne said, like she personally had to, let something sit and then come back and look at it. That is why we want to start as early as possible. So pretty much, honestly, even like right now, if you're currently a junior / rising senior, now's a great time to start, like early on in the summer, so that you have plenty of time and you don't feel rushed. Because for me, I knew that I would have to go through many, many, many drafts and iterations until I landed on what I wanted. So if I started in like August, I wouldn't have the time to do that many drafts. However, I started in sometime around June, and I had the time that I needed to go through my whole process.
Thanks for those points. I'm probably going to take those and use them next year when I have to write the college essay. But anyways, to scholarships. I think we all know how expensive colleges are getting and becoming these days. So could you guys share some advice on applying for scholarships?
Alrighty. Yes, Troy, we can. So it can be really easy to burn out after your college apps are submitted. I think my last one was actually Hopkins. It was due January 18th. And after that, because you've been working so hard for so long, you probably just want to like relax and not do any more writing. Unfortunately, after college applications are finished, that's when scholarship season tends to roll around. So that's when you want to, you know, keep writing those essays and filling out those applications so you can get scholarship money. So make sure you watch the timeline. Don't miss deadlines like the Coca-Cola scholarship, which is a really big merit-based scholarship. I missed the deadline for that because I did not know that it was due in October, which is comparatively very early. So if you're interested in a couple of big scholarships, I would definitely check the date over the summer, which is something that a lot of my friends and I did not do because we were not aware that they would get started that early. So definitely do that. Do not make the same mistake that I did. And scholarships can be very important, and I have found that they can make or break a decision quite often. Honestly, like there was like a 99% chance that I would have been going to the University of Michigan, regardless of what other schools I would get into, just considering the fact that after these 4 years, I would have another 4 years of medical school, which would be more expensive than undergraduate. So attending any other university would have been not super feasible unless I had a scholarship. So scholarships can really help you decide which colleges you want to go to. And without like the Hodson Scholar Grant, which is a $160,000 scholarship from Hopkins, I probably would not have gone at all. And also make sure to reuse and recycle your essays. So when you're applying to scholarships, it's very much like a college application. Sometimes you have to send in your transcripts. Lots of times you have to send in recommendation letters and you have to write essays. And these prompts tend to be a lot more specific, like why are you interested in medicine if it's like a pre-med scholarship, or explain your aspirations or career goals in 10 years. So you can recycle a little bit from your college app stuff, but chances are you will have to write a lot of original material. And a really big scholarship that they offer for high school students that you all will probably be entered into the running for is the National Merit Scholarship. And merit just means it's not something you have to qualify for in terms of financial aid, like anyone can qualify for this scholarship. And it's based on your junior year PSAT score that you take in school for free that everyone signed up for, and the national curve. So you're taking it with the entire junior year class in the United States, and the top something percent can qualify as a national merit semifinalist. And then you have another application after that. And if you manage to become a national merit finalist and you adhere to all their guidelines and their rules for what institutions can offer those scholarships, then I think the most common scholarship award is $2,500. But if your parents like work for a specific company, it can be more than that. So that's definitely something to keep in mind because chances are you will be taking the PSAT as a junior. And as for finding scholarships, this can be tricky. You want to ask your counseling office. Our school is really great, Troy High, because they send out a newsletter every Friday with a bunch of scholarships that are coming up. So if you go to Troy High, definitely take a look at that. And there are several different categories of scholarships. So one is school-based, like let's say Dartmouth is offering a scholarship to Dartmouth. And if you don't attend Dartmouth, then that money, you cannot keep it. Basically, if you go to that school, you can have that money. The other one is field-based. They have lots of interest-based scholarships, like a hockey scholarship or a golf scholarship. And the last one is an organization-based scholarship. For example, mYe does offer a scholarship, and we have a local Asian American community organization that also offers scholarships. And I would also avoid lotteries and no essay scholarships. As a junior and a senior, you are going to get a ton of emails about these, and they are too good to be true. You will just end up with a lot of spam email, and in my opinion, it is a waste of time. And to this date, I do not know anyone who's actually gotten one of those. So it's generally like a lottery, and I would not recommend those. So the first category of scholarship we have here is a merit-based scholarship, and these can be given to anyone, and they're based on merit or what you've done throughout high school and not your financial aid status. So like I said, the first one is school-based. For these, most schools do offer automatic consideration, which is when you submit your application, everyone is automatically considered for merit-based scholarships. So a lot of the scholarships that I received during the college app process from schools, so school-based scholarships, they were all automatic consideration. I did not have to send in any other applications. And I find that really, really convenient. Honestly, if I had to do 2 applications at once, I would not have done it. And also, they do have some schools which you have to apply for a certain merit-based scholarship. For example, the Shipman Scholarship at the University of Michigan, that is an application. You do have to fill that out by a certain deadline. I believe it's March 1st. So just keep an eye on that. You will have to do research into what sort of scholarships your schools offer and the deadlines for that. So just make sure that you have that on your agenda. And scholarships, merit-based scholarships especially, aren't universal if they're from a school. So basically, if you don't attend the school, you lose that money. And as for organization and field-based scholarships, lots of them will have their separate application and lots of them will have interviews. So that's something to keep in mind. And as for scholars programs, lots of schools have one. Like Hopkins, I'm a Hodson scholar, and in UMich, they have STAMP scholars, etc. And lots of these are mission-based. So for example, the Hodson Scholar is a community service-based scholarship. So if you fit in with their mission, definitely research more into that as well. Oh, and lots of them have their own requirements. So for example, as part of like a Hodson scholarship, I have to do community service projects and be on like a board. And I also have to attend several meetings throughout the year. I know for lots of University of Michigan scholars programs, you have to attend certain banquets throughout the year and write thank you letters to the donors who are funding your tuition. All right, so the next category of scholarship is a need-based scholarship. To find out if you qualify for need-based scholarships, I would take a look at the NFC or your net family contribution, and you can find a net family contribution calculator on the internet. They have one on the College Board website where you basically put in your assets, the number of siblings you have in college, your vehicles and properties and like tax returns and stuff like that. And it'll spit out a number that you're expected to pay for tuition. And if your tuition is more than that, then the school can help cover it with a need-based scholarship. And as for need-based scholarships, you have to fill out applications in order to qualify for these. So there are 3 main portals that you need to like register for and make a profile for and then fill out. So the first one is CSS, and basically it qualifies you for non-federal financial aid. So this is important for your schools in order to evaluate how much financial aid that they want to give you. And you would fill this out on the College Board website. The next one is FAFSA, which is responsible for federal student aid. So these are loans that you would get from the government. One thing to keep in mind is that you can only put 10 schools on your FAFSA form. And this is definitely a must for need-based scholarships. You cannot miss this deadline. It's very important. And the last one is the IDOC, or Institutional Documentation Service. And this is just for submitting paperwork and tax records for the CSS and the FAFSA. And it's just like a secure portal where you can send in those government documents. And I would watch the deadlines. Most of them are March 1st, but they may vary by school. And definitely fill it out with a parent to make sure that it's really accurate. Right, and as for needs-based scholarships, can definitely consider the role of undergraduate education and what it's worth. So for example, if I'm going into pre-med, undergraduate, the brand of a school is comparatively much less important than someone who's looking to go into law. Also research individual school financial aid policies and whether the school meets 100% of demonstrated aid. Every school does have their individual financial aid calculator that will show you how much financial aid you can expect if you do get accepted and you apply for financial aid. And to talk with your parents about a budget before applying to schools, because the application process itself is very expensive and you can spend like thousands of dollars on it. There are also third-party loans, such as Sallie Mae, which is a loan company. So take a look at the interest that they charge and the plans that they have. So some plans are deferred payment, which is you start paying after you get out of school, and pay as you earn, which varies by your income. And don't underestimate loans and interest, because lots of people spend a lot of time paying off their student debt. Okay, and if you're need-based qualified, a big one is the Pell Grant Scholarship. So this is a federal scholarship and it covers about 50% of your demonstrated need. And it's really prestigious, so it looks great on your application if you do get a Pell Grant Scholarship. And schools also offer work-study programs. So this is where you study at the school and also work, and they will pay you for your work. And it's usually a part-time job on campus. And you can also get paid for your research, or you can obtain academic credit for your research. So either one. And tuition has also increased 50% since 2000. So definitely look into scholarships, look into what you can afford. And lots of times the financials of it all will be very important in what you end up deciding to go into.
So beyond essays, some prestigious colleges, which I'm sure will receive a lot of applicants from our audience, have interviews. How would you suggest that we tackle those?
Oh, well, when it comes to interviews, our top pieces of advice are to know yourself and know your college. Know both why you want to go to that college and also their specific interview policy, because every single school is a little bit different. Some of them have voluntary interviews that you have to go sign up for yourself. Some colleges randomly assign interviewers, and some colleges just may not have interviews at all. So make sure you are well versed on their specific interview policy. You definitely don't want to miss any deadlines regarding that. I have heard many horror stories from friends who didn't realize that they got an email from their interviewer and didn't respond in time, and they were not able to actually interview. So that's not a situation you want to find yourself in. So make sure you are prepared. When it comes to just returning back to the point of knowing yourself, you want to know some very common questions, such as tell me about yourself and why do you want to go to school here? So you want to practice these questions either in the mirror or with family members or close friends. Talk through these questions, talk through some common interview questions. They don't even have to be specifically college interview questions. They can just be interview questions in general. Practice these as much as you can. Personally, I used to, when I was driving to go pick up my brother from school, on the car ride there, I would basically talk to myself, interviewing myself with all these practice questions I had found. And that helped out a lot because I spent maybe like an hour a day practicing in the approximately week leading up to my interview. So know what you're about, because my interviewer, at least, from what he told me, he doesn't really have a set script for an interview every single time. It's more like a conversation. The questions that he asks depend on what the interviewee is saying. So obviously there's no foolproof way to practice for this. You'll never be 100% prepared for all of the questions that'll be thrown at you, but you can know yourself and know your school and just be prepared enough to talk on the fly after that.
So thank you guys so much for talking with me today. I feel ready to take on this challenge of the college application. That's really all I wanted to ask you guys. So now I will open it up to the audience. But before that, remember to sign up for the IRM conference. These three seniors worked really hard on this event. So you guys really should sign up at myevbeat.com/IRM-event. It should be somewhere in the chat. If not, it could be pasted in there again, but if you need it, it's on the screen, it's on the presentation right now. So please be sure to check out this event. It is really important and it will help you a lot, and it will hopefully inspire you to do greater things. Now, back to the Q&A. I've already have some questions were compiled by our volunteers from the Q&A box. So question 1. Some students hire consultants to help with them to polish their applications. What are your thoughts on these consultants, and why did you hire one if you did?
So I personally did not hire a college consultant. I had gone to like those free seminars they host to sort of check out what they're about. And what I realized is that these people, they're just meeting you like maybe in a few months leading up to when you're submitting your application, and they may not fully know or understand what you want or what you're about. And I didn't want what I wanted out of the college process to get lost in that. So I did not end up going with a consultant.
Right, and no one knows you better as an applicant or where your strong points are or where your interests are better than you do. Um, I guess I did not use the college consultant company either, but if you were interested one, I want to say it might be because you're undecided about college or you have like a wide variety of extracurriculars that don't have like a specific focus or interest. Then a counselor can definitely help you find a storyline or a narrative or a focus for your application if you can't find one yourself. But otherwise, I think if you want advice on like essays, counselors are a great resource. But this is definitely like an individual decision as well.
Going off of what everyone else said, I also didn't have a college consultant. And so when you get to that process of putting together your application, I think you should know yourself best and you should know what's important to you. And that could be a great point to start off when you're trying to create a narrative. I also know other college counselors. There are some of them who will take you through starting from freshman year, what clubs you should join, what grades and classes you should take and get. And I think that I don't know how effective they are, but I do believe that to some degree you're losing yourself a bit in it because, like Grace mentioned earlier when we were talking about self identity, it's really important that you live the 4 years the way you want to live, even if the result at the end isn't satisfactory. Make sure that you don't regret spending the time you spent doing what you do. So I feel like if you really do hire a college consultant from that early, it might be harder to find yourself, but of course it's a bit different for every single person.
All right, thanks for those points. Greatly appreciated. Second question now. Some students might have closer connections with, say, a freshman teacher or a sophomore teacher. Would it be advisable to get a rec letter from them or from a junior year teacher? How about Jasmine? Do you want to answer this one first?
Sure, I can take this one. For this one, it is not advisable to get a recommendation letter from your freshman or sophomore year even. I think junior year is really what you want to shoot for, especially because senior year, you're applying, let's say you're applying early, the application's due in November. You've only really known that teacher for 2 months. I did have a sophomore year teacher write my application, and I think the exception for that is if you are excuse me, leadership in a club that the teacher advises. So for example, I was in biology competitions club and that teacher was the advisor of that. And we had stayed in contact for like a really, really long time. I visit her all the time and she was really involved in like my internships and helping me out with my research. So I think that would be a case where you could have a recommendation letter from a sophomore year teacher is if you guys are still in a club together and you guys have a lot of contact even when you're not a student in their class.
Yeah, for me personally, again, I second Jasmine's point that you don't really want to go with a teacher from sophomore or freshman year. Um, However, I was in the situation in which I had a teacher for 2 years for two different classes, sophomore and junior year, and that worked out perfectly for me because this teacher had known me for a little bit longer. And the other rec letter writer that I chose was someone who had helped me with my writing competitions, and she had proofread some of my creative writing before that. So I think it really comes down to deciding which teachers know you best.
I don't really have anything to add to that. I think Grace and Jasmine covered the points there perfectly.
All right, sweet. Well, that's it for the pre-compiled questions. Now we will jump into the Q&A box. So first, I would say question or point from anonymous attendee. Anne, could you please send me the information about the Hua Yu Chinese writing competition? I'm interested. Thanks. So I guess you could just talk a little bit about the Huayu Chinese writing competition and then maybe send some details in the chat.
Yeah, so I don't really have a specific link for that. So I'll just let you know how I joined it. So I was in Chinese school back then, and I think Chinese school, every single year, they have like the first part of the competition is held at Chinese school. So if you go there, you can ask like the principals or the teachers about it. And so what basically happens is the first round is conducted at the school, the first two rounds, I think. The first round, you send in a piece of your written work to them. And then the second round, what they do is they take everyone to the school and they give you a limited time, and then you just write an essay on the given topic they give you in Chinese. And then after that, if you pass through, what they do is they have like winners from each area, like the greater Detroit. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure our area covered Chicago too. Like they have like Midwest maybe and like Eastern area. Like those areas, they have winners from each geographic area go to New York for the final competition is what happens. And the final competition is a little weird. It's like history and a speech that you write. So yeah, so I would say just talk about to Chinese school about it. I attended the Chinese school of Greater Detroit. I think you can find their website just by looking it up, and they meet in Derby High School in Birmingham. So I'm middle school. So if you want to take a visit, you can.
Right, sweet. Hopefully that answers your question. Second one. What is the full name of Adam Deca, short intro on Deca associate with Adam High?
Okay, so DECA, although it technically is an acronym, that is not what people generally refer to it as, because the actual letters of what the DECA stand for are not incredibly important. DECA is just a pre-professional business organization that helps high school students who are interested in business sort of explore those interests in hypothetical sort of mock business meeting situations. And those are a competition also. So Adams DECA is just what we refer to our chapter of DECA that is at Adams High School as. So the broader organization is named DECA.
Thanks for those. Hopefully that answers your question. Here's a good one from Benjamin Tao. How would you say dual enrollment classes are seen differently compared to APs?
It really depends on what classes you're going to take. Lots of times dual enrollment will be seen as like they will carry more weight because it is a college grade. So if you're really confident that this is a class you will be able to get an A in, go ahead and do the dual enrollment class. And lots of schools offer APs, but if your school does not offer as many as you'd like to take, check out like your local community college. And you can also take dual enrollment classes there in the same subjects as APs or whatever subject you're interested in. And I would say that dual enrollment classes also offer a lot more flexibility, but you do have to watch your scheduling and whether you can actually commute there and whether it'll interfere with your school, high school. Because if it does, then that's something you'll probably have to work around with your counselor.
Yeah, so I second Jasmine's point about how dual enrollment is often viewed as a little bit more rigorous compared to AP or high school classes, just because they are taken alongside other undergraduates. I know personally when I was taking my classes, my dual enrollment classes, I was taking them alongside like sophomore engineering majors, which is obviously very different than taking a class alongside other high school seniors.
I'm also gonna just add that like dual enrollment classes, when you enroll, you also need to realize that they also cost additional like money, I believe. I think so. You can also keep that in mind if financial means are a concern to you.
Right, sweet. Hopefully that answers your question. Next one. How to find research opportunities with college professors or institutions?
For this one, I guess I can speak on this because I did some like STEM research. Lots of times, if you know someone who works in a lab, like let's say one of your parents works there or a relative, I would contact them first just because they'd probably be more open to letting you work in a lab with them. And lots of places such as Henry Ford, some of them do limit the number of people who can come in and assist a professor or a researcher. And I think the Henry Ford like cardiac division, they only restrict assistance to direct family members of the researchers themselves. So definitely check with like your aunts, your uncles, your parents. But if none of them work in a lab or are affiliated with a school and no researcher, then you would have to cold email researchers, just like introduce yourself, send them your resume, your CV, do some research into what they are currently studying or have studied before, and hopefully they will let you join, but more often than not, they're probably not going to reply back to you. So definitely send a lot of emails, contact a lot of professors, and hopefully it all pans out.
Great. Yes, hopefully that answers your question. Because we're kind of running short on time, I'm gonna have to pick out a few of these questions. Let's see. Here's one. What can middle school students do to prepare for college applications?
So as a middle schooler, obviously this is a little bit early on in the entire process. I guess it depends on where you are in middle school. If you are preparing to go into high school, like in 8th grade, creating a 4-year course plan of what classes are you going to take when, that's always a good idea. If you're not quite there yet, middle school is a great time to experiment and see what you'll be interested in. So there's even lower stakes in middle school because you don't have a GPA and there's no huge pressure. So you can just try out and see what you're interested. Maybe you'll discover that you really like business or you really like medicine. And that can be really good for by the time you get into high school, really focusing your extracurriculars.
And if I can add on to that, like if you're in middle school, do not be worrying about college at all. I feel like right now, like the college craze is just getting younger and younger. And soon we're gonna, like have elementary schoolers worried about what college they're going to go into. Do not worry about that. I did not even start thinking about like what colleges I was going to go into or like college applications until the August before senior year. So like a month before senior year started, I was like, I should probably start thinking about this. Do not stress yourself out over colleges. It is not the end all be all. Like you're going to do so much better stuff in high school that can't be measured on a college application. Do not think about college now. Just like do what you're interested in, work on yourself. That's pretty much all you can do right now and all you should be doing.
Just really enjoy middle school while you can, because chances are high school is going to be pretty hectic. But if you really just are maybe like going crazy about the unknown factors, one thing you can do is just start a Common App account. There's really nothing you can do right now, but it's a great way to keep track of like colleges you're potentially thinking of going to. And you can also just get familiarized with the mechanics because you're going to use it senior year eventually when you fill it out. So you can create the Common App in your middle school. So that's just something to do if you need it to keep like the unknownness off your mind. But please enjoy middle school.
Yeah, I cannot stress this enough. Do not worry about college in middle school.
I mean, in middle school, I thought IU was an Ivy League. I was like, I had no idea.
Yeah, I think all 4 of us actually can stress that point. Just please enjoy middle school. It's a time for you to relax before the stress of high school. So yeah, even right now, I'm a rising junior. I'm not even thinking about what college I should go to. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Really enjoy middle school, have fun, find your passions. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Pick out another question. Sweet. How did you guys prepare for the academic competitions, especially for contests on the state and national level? Are the resources at your school enough for you to take extra/private tutoring outside of school?
So I don't particularly know if DECA qualifies as an academic competition, but that is primarily what I did in terms of competition in the last 4 years. So what I more or less did for DECA was a lot of self-study. Of course, I took a business class at school, but when that wasn't enough, I did a lot of self-studying, a lot of practice. my big piece of advice for any type of test or competition is just to practice. And that's really what helped. I got together with a few friends who were doing like similar DECA competitions, and we just helped each other work through it.
Right, and I think I can answer this one too, because I did a lot of academic / study-based competitions. For these, I honestly like textbooks will be super, super helpful. Some people just like study online on like websites. I think textbooks are a lot more comprehensive and it'll be much easier to study your content if you have a textbook. As for this one, just like work hard. There's no secret formula for like, or like cheat system for winning one of those competitions. As for like resources at your school, lots of times your school will not have resources for these academic based competitions unless you're borrowing a textbook from a teacher. That's really something that you just have to handle on your own. And I never had a tutor, like I never went to like an SAT prep class or anything. And I think like if you're willing to just study on your own, that's probably, for me, that's what's worked best.
Sweet. I guess hopefully that answers your question. Let me find another one. Oh, here's a really, really good one. Yeah, this one I also had a question about too. Do you recommend summer camp programs at prestigious colleges?
Well, it depends on if they're prestigious summer camp programs in and of themselves, or they're just at a prestigious institution, because there's a huge difference there. What you hopefully should be looking at when you're looking at summer programs is how exclusive is the program itself, not just the school that it's at, because there are lots of schools who may host summer programs, but these summer programs, there's not a very rigorous application process. They pretty much accept anyone. And those are not, sorry, those are not the best summer programs to go to. You want to go to summer programs that are really very choosy about who they let in.
Yeah, sorry. They do have like some summer schools or like summer camps at colleges, and they can be like an Ivy League school, but if you're like paying money to like take a class there over the summer, in my opinion, I would not go, probably because I just like don't like spending money on academic help or like support. But if it's something that requires an application, I would feel much more comfortable about like using that time and energy on that summer camp, because chances are it's going to be a lot more selective and it's something that you can write about on your essays or you can include in your list of activities.
Right. Sweet. Yes, that's another answer. Another question answered. Now, let's see. Next one. All right. What tips helped you succeed in high school? What things helped you find your interest?
So in regards to what tips helped me succeed in high school, I think it was just the willingness to more or less put in the work, to just be willing and able to, put my head down and study when I need to study. And then in regards to what helped me discover my interest, I think that really just comes down to extracurriculars, because in school, you're always busy taking your math and science, and that was never, or English classes, none of those core subjects were the subjects that particularly interested me all that much. I was more interested in like, maybe public policy or economics or business and all these things. So these are the experiences that I more or less got through extracurriculars rather than just in conventional academic studies. So in terms of discovering your interests, I just advise you to try everything and see which one really really sort of interests you at the end of the day.
Just to add on to that, like even branch out to like things in your community. If you have job shadowing, that would be great. I feel like the clubs at school are great, but in terms of if you really understand like the career path, or like if it truly is something interesting to you, you really have to go out into the community, because a lot of things, they aren't exactly like representative of the career accurately. So for example, B, I did DECA, which was really enlightening on business as a whole. But for me, B outside of school was really what helped me understand business better. And at first I started as a student, but I kept with it because I realized this was something I was really interested in and I really enjoyed the classes. It added so much to my life. And so that's how I eventually became a TA. And it was a great, just like a little wink in the head, like not on the head, just what direction I wanted to go to.
All right, then hopefully that answers your question. Wow, there's so many questions, dang. And they're good ones too. Here's another one. How many recommendation letters should you have for your college applications?
Right. So this is really important, just the amount of rec letters you're going to have. You must realize that each college, sometimes they require you to have a certain number with the option to have another one. Some don't require it at all. My suggestion is that you send in like 1 or 2 rec letters if it's possible. If it requires to, send in the required amount. But for the optional ones, you must realize that admission officers are going to be really busy. And so if you're going to send in an additional rec letter, make sure that it's one that really adds into your application as a whole. Make sure it's from someone who really knows you and is just really a inseparable part of your like application as a whole, because if it's just something that is going to repeat something that other people have already said, it really doesn't have any value and it's just going to waste the admissions officer's time, and chances are they're not going to like that.
Yes, just adding on to that, I feel like most people will have 3 to 5 recommendation letters. If it's more than 5, like, and you're not going to be submitting like 5 recommendation letters to one school. So the reason why I said that is certain schools do have requirements for recommendations, which is something you will need to research before you apply and before you ask for recommendations. So this is something you want to find out over the summer. For example, I know certain Ivy Leagues want one from like a core sciencey subject like math or science, and they also want one from an English teacher. Or I know that Georgetown wanted one from like a social sciences teacher. So you have to consider all of that when you're putting together your college list, is how many subjects are required for recommendations and how many that you're currently meeting. And if you need to, you have to ask other teachers for their recommendations as well.
Yeah, and if you're ever not sure exactly what your college's policies are, you can always go on the Common App, and if you look below a college for the application materials, there will be sections in which you'll say, oh, submit your recommendation letter here, and then write your other recommendation letter here. So then you'll know, okay, so they want 2 of them. You can always go and confirm on the Common App exactly how many they're willing to accept.
Yep. All right. Thanks for that. Hopefully that answered your question. Let's see, more questions. All right, here's another good one. Can Grace and Ann talk about DECA Club at Adams High? Any advice for a coming 9th grader?
So if you're an incoming 9th grader, so you're heading into Adams this next year, I highly, highly recommend joining DECA. So DECA helps, at least it helped me with my public speaking skills, just because when we were at the competition, you're trying to present what you've been working on to a judge. That sort of situation really, it had previously made me incredibly nervous, but then the more I did it, the more comfortable I got in those settings, and I really enjoyed it.
And I just want to add, even if you're not interested in business or public speaking, if you want to get into like a good college or something, or chances are, no matter where you go in the future, you're going to have an interview of some sort, DECA will help you control your nervousness and become better at trying to get your point across. So that's just great to keep in mind. It's a great club to join. But also, if you are going to attend Adams High School, I know that DECA at Adams High School has a prerequisite that you must be taking a business course. Computer science also counts. So I think that's something that could be said for all clubs. Check if they have prerequisites. It's different for each school. And then any advice for incoming ninth grader at Adams? Grace, do you have any points you particularly want to touch on?
In terms of points I would talk about, I would just say a lot of times people over exaggerate how hard an AP class is going to be. Like everyone talks about how bad like AP US history is, but it's not as bad as people say it is. The teachers are really great and they do want to help you. I think overall I had a positive experience with the teachers. And yeah, so just don't be scared off by what upperclassmen are saying about some like specific class.
I think both of us might agree on this point that some of the hardest classes we took weren't the AP classes, but the honors classes.
Yeah. Watch out for honors pre-calc. That one's a
Yeah.
doozy.
So just keep that in mind. So I think actually at Adams, like some of the honors classes are harder than AP. So if you can handle the honors classes, you can probably get through most of the APs.
Sweet. Hopefully that answers your question about atoms. Let's see, more questions. All right, here's a long one. Is it too late to take some AP classes on senior year since you have already received offers from universities? And you cannot add the grade of those AP classes on the essay since the AP tests are in May and you have not taken the test when you apply.
So that's an interesting point. Um, so yeah, that does bring up a sort of a dilemma that people have when they're applying for their colleges. However, on the Common App in particular, they have an entire section for what classes will you be taking in your senior year. So you'll input all of these classes and you'll indicate whether or not you are planning on taking the AP exam. However, as you said, the scores don't come out until like July. So the scores will not factor into you getting into college. However, hopefully you will have a positive enough of an admissions package that your history from your junior year APs and maybe even your sophomore year ones will be good enough to get you in.
That's good. Or anything else to add, or are we all set? I think we're all set. Yeah. All right. Hopefully that answers your question. Let's see. And we have one here. How do you research the college majors that interest you?
I think lots of times when like, let's say, you're interested in environmental engineering, lots of colleges will have majors that closely align with specific career fields. So if you want to be an environmental engineer, lots of schools will have like an appropriate engineering or specifically environmental engineering major. So just based on that, and if you're in between multiple majors that could work for your career field, so for example, for med, there are usually like 4 or 5 different majors you could go into. I would check out what aligns best with your application because the major that you're interested in will be a part of your application. And if it doesn't really tie into what your experience is in terms of clubs and classes and extracurriculars, that sort of inconsistency will raise a few red flags. So if you're like ever doubting the major that you're putting in, just put whatever works best with your application and your essays.
Yeah, and then most colleges will have pages on their websites, maybe not even for like prospective students, but for the students who already go to that college. They give descriptions of the majors, like the type of classes they would take, occasionally even career fields that people have taken after they graduated with that major. So you can always look at those and check out, what is it actually like if I were to go down this path?
And I just wanted to add that like a lot of times many colleges the major that you go into when you like fill out your application isn't the set major that they're going to make you take. A lot of them, they say, oh, that's like your field of interest. So keep that in mind. There's like a lot of leeway to change if it isn't ending up to be something that you actually like. So don't feel too pressured to have like a major that you absolutely like already like very clear in your head.
All right, hopefully that answers your question. Let me see if there's any more. Yeah, so it's almost 4. Well, as soon as you hit 4, yes, yeah, we're good. But if you guys have any questions, quickly list them on since we are ending at 4. But here's another one. I am from another state. Is DECA a club or a national program or just Michigan in Michigan? Or just a school club?
So it's like a national competition, basically. They have like a national organization, and then there are branch chapters at many different schools. And so you first compete at the regional level, then at the state level, and then finally nationals, if that answers your question.
All right. Well, hopefully that answers your question. Here's a great one. This is a great one. How did you all three get involved in mYe?
Well, personally, I got involved in mYe in a long time ago at this point, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I knew somebody who was already involved in mYe and they needed someone to come help host one of their sunrise events, which are sadly not running right now. The sunrise events were when we took a bunch of young musicians and had them perform at nursing homes to sort of lift the spirits of the people in those nursing homes. Obviously, due to current pandemic circumstances, that is not happening. However, that was how I initially got involved. And then later on, I helped MC one of the annual dinners that mYe had. And then after that, I got involved in the B classes that Anne is currently TAing. And eventually, I applied for the Youth Leadership Committee, and here I am now.
So my story with mYe is kind of similar. I got started really early too. I think freshman year I was involved. The first class I took was a public speaking class because I felt that was very important. I also joined DECA the first year, so I was thinking, oh, both of them could help each other. And then afterwards, I joined the B class, and then I've been doing it ever since. I remember when I first joined, they offered applications for YLC and I applied. And so that's how I got started with the Youth Leadership Committee at mYe.
I joined mYe, I want to say I think I joined during my junior year. It's not super clear. But yes, I joined the B class, which is like about business and entrepreneurship. And then after that, I joined the YLC Youth Leadership Committee, and yeah, it's been fun. That's kind of it. Like, I have not been in mYe as long as like Grace or Anne.
All right. Well, it's 4:01. That's pretty much all that. That's all we have time for today. And pretty much thank you guys so much for attending. Thank you so much for our panelists for providing us with this insightful information. And thank you again to the audience for supporting this conference. And be sure to check out the Inspiring Role Models Conference as well. We spent so much time on this and we're still planning. So please check it out at myebeat.com/IREM-event. Let me repeat that, mye, so myebeat.com/IRM-event, EVENT. So please check that out. This Beat Live session, I believe, is recorded and will be on our YouTube channel. I think I put the link already in the chat along with myebeat.com/IRM-event. Please check that out. Please check it out. Please sign up. We have a VIP pass, and then we also have a normal general pass. Either one, please sign up. We spent a lot of time. The YLC spent a lot of time, so please check that out. But anyways, thank you all for your participation today, and we hope you have a wonderful evening. So thank you. All right, see you guys.